Hi, this next episode was recorded by accident. I was appearing on an episode of the Anxious Truth podcast with Drew Lensalata, and we left the tape running, and I think I'm showing my age by using the word tape. So we were talking about how I was blocked from Instagram. We didn't know why, and I kept getting booted off every day for a while, and how people reacted and how I reacted to people reacting, and that's a lot of reacting. So here it is with outtakes and all. All right, enjoy.
Are you blocked now?
No.
You're unblocked now.
Yeah.
I'm afraid to do anything.
Every time you hit a button,
It's
become
it.
Instagram public enemy number
They
one.
had me I was unblocked for 6 hours. And then all I did was post one thing, made one comment, and liked like 3 photos. And then I went to like a fourth, and they're like, you're blocked again.
Yeah, no, we'll have none of
And
that.
they're like, so they keep saying 24 hours, and 24 hours comes around. They're like, you know what? That wasn't long enough. We're going to give you another 24.
No, like we're talking 24 hours on Mars. Like you don't understand. Different time frame altogether. So, is this a family-friendly podcast? We don't care.
I don't care.
Let it rip. Anyway, so you get blocked on Instagram. We start the free Joe Ryan hashtag. I'm making up T-shirts without a doubt. Like it's going to be huge. Not since Tyson was like wrongly acquitted or whatever. No,
What was
it's
the
wrong.
Yugoslavian guy, the labor leader? What was his name back
Oh,
in the
wait.
day?
Lech Walesa
Yeah,
in Poland,
so-
Solidarity.
yeah.
Oh my God, you're the Instagram Lech Walesa. I love it.
Fist.
Yes,
up in
it was
the
the
air.
Solidarność. Was the Polish with the two dots over the O.
Right, that's
I'm
right.
making that. You are going to be that. I'm gonna find somebody who can make a T-shirt, and that's what it's going to be. You're like the Instagram Lech Walesa. But people did come out and support.
They did.
So they followed the Free Joe Ryan hashtag. And like we were talking about, the cool comments that people had thrown out there.
Right. I was blown away. Like all I'm doing is taking my crazy and putting it on paper and putting it out in the world to get it out of me.
Yeah.
And I never really I guess I didn't really think people were paying that much attention. So I just kept saying that I'm blocked. Like I felt like I was being rude because people's stuff was coming and I couldn't like or comment on it. It's
Right.
like, why is this guy ignoring me? And I'm worried about
Right.
what everybody else thinks. And then all of a sudden, people were like outraged. Like, how can they be blocking you? Why are they blocking you? And they thought it was because I was talking about trauma. Maybe Instagram didn't want that. I still don't know why I was blocked. But it was the comments definitely took me back, and I couldn't process it. It gave me like a really, really weird feeling. Like I wanted to go hide in a hole.
People saying nice things.
Nice things. Apparently I don't like myself enough to have people say nice things because it gave me such a negative reaction.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So it was it like you guys are killing me here? You gotta is it humility? What is it?
I didn't know. I just know that I had this reaction where I didn't know how to respond to what people were saying. You're important. It's important that you're here. People need to hear you.
Yeah.
And I guess I just came from a place where I never felt like I was important or people needed to hear me. And I didn't know how to say thank you. And part of me really wanted to go down deep and just put it all out there and be like, oh my God, I've always needed to hear these things. And now I've heard them and I don't know what to do with them. I guess I thought it would have had, because it didn't feel like an ego thing for me. It really hit me deep down in a place that I really feel like I've never gotten to. And
Right.
people took me there and I didn't know how to respond. And I was talking to a friend of mine, and she told me, she goes, you just don't know, you're not good at receiving. And I was like, wow, that's a great way of putting it.
Yeah.
I'm not good at receiving. And I actually messaged somebody back, and I said, I kind of poured my heart out a little for me, and it felt kind of weird and awkward. And I said, I guess I'm just not good at receiving. Like I stole what she had said to me.
Yeah.
But it bothered me, and I just wanted to hide. I just wanted to put myself in a dark closet, close the door, and go la 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 la,
Right.
and not come out. And normally, that embarrassment, that shame, that's the only way I can feel, like embarrassed and ashamed.
Of people saying nice things.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Like I can't even wrap my head around why that would be. And I get this feeling a lot where I feel like I'm exposed before I'm ready to be exposed, and that's when I feel shame.
Right.
And I wasn't prepared for how many people messaged me and how upset they were that I was blocked.
Right.
I didn't think I mattered that much. I guess that's what it was.
And so now you find out to the contrary, that people actually like to hear what you're saying. It's helping. You're valuable. You're important.
Right.
And it sends you into like a freaking little bit of a freak out, though.
It does. It does. And so the end up was I kind of had to figure out why. So now, like, instead of avoiding those feelings and then doing something to distract myself from what I was actually feeling,
Right.
I shut everything off and I laid in bed and I started to think about where this came from. Why would somebody react so negatively to hearing positive things? And I remembered when I was a kid, my parents had a lot of people over, and it was kind of like the olden days where everybody sat around and drank demi-tasse around the kitchen table.
Demi-tasse, holy crap!
Right, with the anisette and the lemon slice.
Yes,
Yeah.
holy shit! Now I'm back to childhood here.
And that was like a normal occurrence in my house. And I got called into the kitchen, and my mother was sitting there, kind of bragging about me.
Right.
And that was the memory that I had gotten that I equated to the feeling of people saying nice things. So my mother would say, he did this, he's good at that, the teacher said this one said that, and I'm standing there like on display.
Yeah.
But everything that was positive that was being said about me, people were like adoring me for those things.
Right.
Like, look at this cute little kid.
Right.
I didn't take those things. All of those feelings and all that admiration and all that, the nice comments came in me.
Yeah.
Through me, and I felt like they slid over into my mother.
So now let me ask you a silly question. And we've talked about this stuff before. That's engineered.
Yeah.
Like look at what a great mom I am.
Right.
And I'm going to show you evidence now.
Right. So it was just I was a trophy son for that.
moment.
For that moment.
Right.
I was, and the thing that I think. None of it resonated with me. Everything that was the praise that I was getting and the affection that I was getting didn't feel genuine or authentic because what she was saying didn't feel true to me. So I felt like a fraud. I mean, you know me a long time.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters to me is being genuine and authentic. When
Right.
I'm not, I get very uncomfortable. And I think I mapped it back to this experience through getting blocked on Instagram, getting positive affirmations back, causing the uncomfortable feeling. So it just passed through me, passed to her. It didn't feel like I had owned it, deserved it. It didn't feel genuine. And what I had realized was that I have been spiting that moment my entire life. I could never be more than a piece of shit because anytime I was anything other than that, I didn't feel like I deserved the praise. I felt like I had to give it to my parents and my family. So I've self-sabotaged my entire life because I get to this point where I'm getting successful or I'm doing good at work or whatever it is, and it's like it doesn't feel real to me because I feel like I have to give that to somebody else. I guess I felt used.
Yeah.
And I didn't want anybody else to benefit from my hard work.
Yeah, that I think is a huge revelation. So, like, you get blocked on Instagram, people are a little bit outraged because they like your stuff,
right?
And they're showing their support, and that somehow gets equated to like, don't tell me that I'm important because I'm not giving that shit to her.
Subconsciously, yes.
Yeah,
and
like,
that's
too bad she's not getting that.
Right, and the funny thing is, though, there's another side of me that's like. Well, I want that attention because I feel like a worthless piece of shit inside.
Right.
But it doesn't feel real. The comments that I got this past week did feel real. Like it wasn't anything from my ego. It was like a genuine, I'm just taking who I am and putting it out there and people are responding. I didn't know what to do with that.
And people would have no reason, no motive for like stroking your ego for no good reason. They're just telling you that they like your stuff.
Right.
So like there's nothing more genuine than that. It's just feedback from good people. That's all. And so in the end, but it then flows through to like, I can't accept that. But now why doesn't it feel real? I mean, I have some guesses based on some of the things that you and I talked about.
I haven't gotten that far yet. Like, I'm not sure. Like, I need to go and sit and meditate and feel it, but I am open to suggestions.
So, all right, so fine, suggestions. So, when the demi-tasse is on the table and everybody's sipping espresso with their pinkies out, then you're a trophy son. Let me tell you about what he did. He's good at this, he did that. But when the table's getting cleaned up and everybody went home and now there's no one there to put a show on for anymore, were you the trophy son anymore?
No, I just felt worthless and empty.
Right. But did you ever get that sort of positive feedback outside of a public forum? And we've talked about this, we got to put a show on so that everybody sees what an amazing family we are.
Right.
Until the door is closed.
Right, the facade.
They don't have to see that part, right?
The facade, yeah.
Maybe that's why it doesn't feel real. Because it only existed as a show in that moment.
Right, and I think, as a child, you take whatever you can get to feel good. Because your life is based on those mirroring faces from the people who raise you. We're humans. That's what we need. That I never felt it. Felt like I never could generate that feeling from within. That I've lived my life trying to get outside validation always, and it always left me feeling even emptier than before. It was kind of like an addiction.
Okay.
So I would get the feeling I would need outside of myself. But after a while, it wasn't anything special anymore. So now I had to up it, and I had to keep going and make it more and bigger and bigger and bigger until one day I crashed and I realized that I had to stop because I could not validate from the outside anymore. I realized that that's what I had spent my whole life doing.
Yeah.
And that's when I ended up not doing anything and trying to feel good just sitting on a couch. And that didn't work either.
Yeah, well, that's another way to go about it, I suppose. We just sit on the sofa. But that's such an interesting thing, how the world works too. So you get this thing going, and people are actually, what you're saying is resonated, and it leads you back. It's resonating with other people, and that turns out to be initially negative because it gives you some really shitty feelings.
Right.
But even that then becomes a positive when you can start to understand, oh, wait a minute, that maybe this is why I feel shitty when people say nice things to me.
Yeah, because I never owned any of the positive coming back my way. I felt like I always had to give it to something else. There was always an excuse of why you're telling me this is good. Well, I'm not really good. It was just luck, or
right.
Let me try to reproduce that again. I always downplayed it and never owned it. And when this had happened this week, it was such a powerful feeling, not sitting there with my fingers on the keypad, not knowing how to respond. And I'm usually not at a loss for words.
Right.
And I sat there for about 40 minutes and I typed it over and over and over again. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say and how to say it. And that kind of freaked me out a little.
I think just on a personal observation is you've done that as long as I know you. Hey, that turned out really great. Only in the last few months you seem to be comfortable with just saying, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
You would just nah, that's not a thing.
It was never good enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's, the addiction part. I've done so many things that were higher profile. And, when I was doing stand-up comedy, I was in front of, hundreds of people.
Right.
It's hard to reproduce that. And that was such an amazing feeling that writing good code to make a script work.
Yeah.
I don't have 350 people applauding.
No.
So I just kind of to me it was, unless it was huge and monumental and grandiose,
right,
I couldn't feel it. And what's interesting was it was a couple of words from a couple of people that brought me to my knees.
Yeah, interesting. And the opposite of grandiose.
The complete
you
opposite.
Don't actually see them. You will probably never ever meet them. They're just Instagram accounts in the end.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting. But how much bigger could you make it? So really, to make the praise feel real or the validation feel, it had to be huge.
Had to be huge.
Had to be enormous.
Right.
Wow, that's another thing that just sounds exhausting to have to deal with for so often.
Because I feel like a lot of my validation came from performing, so to speak.
Right.
Just being me, coloring inside the lines, there was no praise. if there was an audience at the house, coloring inside the line became praise.
Right.
So I think I learned my entire life that the only way I can feel validated is by a mirror coming back from other people, where that left me kind of drained and exhausted and depleted.
But even when you did get that mirror, like if the experience is that, hey, you just being you gets no feedback until there's an audience, then there's lavish praise.
Right.
But that only exists for one reason. Then, even as a kid, I'm sure you understand that. Like when that was just a show, so that everybody could see what
I think I remembered about when I realized that, because you don't know what you don't know when you're a kid at that point. But when I realized it, then there was just that resentment, and then it was the rebellious stage.
Yeah.
Hair halfway down my back.
Yeah.
Just getting in trouble, and I'm not going to be what you want me to be, so I am going to make you love me, even when I'm not what you want me to be.
Right.
And that led me down a really dangerous, destructive path, because now after this past week, I feel like I realized that a lot of that self-sabotage, a lot of that rebellion, a lot of that troublemaking was I needed somebody to love that part of me, because I was only loved for certain parts.
Yeah.
So I gravitated towards the other parts that weren't loved and wanted to cram it down your throat and make you love me for being this piece of shit instead of this superstar.
Right.
So there was these two polar opposites, and the most painful place to be for me was in the middle of the two. The humdrum, going to the deli, going to the supermarket, doing laundry.
Yeah.
There was nothing for that. So I lived in these two extremes.
Well, nobody gets patted on the back for just living life. Nobody gets patted on the back for doing laundry,
Right. It was so it was just those two extremes. Either nice guy, people pleaser, something that you would look at with value, or addict in the street type. And there was just these two polarities. And I think what I'm starting to realize now is over especially the last few years, I've been trying to close the gap from those two extremes, and just live in the middle more.
Which is probably where you naturally are.
Yes.
Right.
And I've gotten very guarded in a way that anytime I do something, I check myself to make sure, do I need my ego fed right now? Or does this have value in the universe? And when I feeling low, feeling empty, feeling unloved, feeling bored, whatever it is, I purposely do not do anything to get anything coming back positive. I sit with that crappy feeling in the middle. Now when I'm feeling good and I don't need validation, that's when I'll publish stuff. And I'll do stuff like that, because only when I don't need it.
Because it's not, you're right, you're not doing it specifically to get some sort of validation or feedback. It's an expression. It's whatever it is at the moment. Just a good picture. It's interesting words, whatever.
Right. It's just me expressing myself, where it used to be, I need to put this out there so you can tell me I'm not worthless.
It's so funny.
Please love me. Please validate me. Please love me.
And to sort of bring it back to the stuff that you publish these days, which is so good. But I've been watching you do that for a really long time, and it's so much more natural now.
Yes.
We've had this conversation.
Yes.
Right. I always felt like, man, like you were trying to hit a home run every single time, and now I understand why.
Right.
Some of it was so over the top. Wow.
It's painful to go reread it, but I leave it up there for that reason, so I could see how far the journey came. It had to be, every word, every line, every sentence had to be perfect. But it also had to be that you couldn't know exactly what I was talking about.
Right.
Because I did not want you to know what was going on inside here, because I was humiliated and ashamed by my thoughts and feelings. So I left it up to, it was like a Pearl Jam lyrics. You never know what the hell half of their songs are about. But they resonate with you at some level. It could be about this, it could be about that. I'm not really sure, maybe this. That's kind of the way I wrote. Wouldn't be able to pinpoint it. And now I'm pretty much saying exactly what I'm feeling and what it is.
What's interesting is, I think, so there's this torrent of stuff that you can't really talk about, but you're trying to express anyway. And you would think it would be super rough, but you worked so hard to have a sheen on it. Like that Steely Dan, super slick. Man, this is fucking amazing. but yet all of that like turmoil is underneath that. Like I really want to tell you stuff, but I can't. But I need it to look finished. Like this is a finished product.
It's the facade.
Yeah.
I'm a mess underneath, but I'm going to make this look polished so you think that I'm more than I am, so that I could feel the way I need to feel through you.
Right.
And now it's like, okay, I just feel like crap. Here are some really deep, dark, dirty words, and have at it.
But it's so good now. Like it's so good, as opposed to trying to find that. Like, well, this metaphor probably took him 25 minutes to come up with.
Right.
Like I can almost read it and say, like, yeah, that was a hard. That I see what he's going for here, and that was intentionally like, this is a really good metaphor here.
Right.
And I'm going to put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't seem to care. Like the words are just saying what you need to say, and that's it.
Yeah, I think so. The process of starting to slowly. I mean, I remember the first time that I thought about doing this on Instagram. I mean, I have people that know me from childhood. They know me a certain way. I have family members on there. Like, I don't think this is going to be received at all in a good way, and it was painful. I would write it. And I'm like, okay, I got to put this up. And I would actually sit there. Some of them took me 3-4 days. I'd be like, today's the day. And I would sit on my couch and I'd be like, okay, now. And it's like, no, tomorrow. I couldn't allow the world to see me for who I was without that veneer shine on it.
Right.
Like it's just raw and dirty. Like there's nothing polished about it.
Right.
And it's very revealing and very exposing. And I didn't feel strong enough to be seen for what my life was and who I am.
Especially by people who know you.
Oh my
Family
God, that's
members
been
and
the worst.
friends.
I still struggle with it.
Yeah.
I still struggle. It's gotten a lot easier where I barely think about putting anything up anymore.
Right.
But there are still times where I'll put something up and I'll be like, okay, let's just go in bed under the covers and forget that we just did this and see what the fallout is.
It's not like there's anywhere to hide. You use your name. I mean, like you couldn't have. It's not like you have a pseudonym or some sort of screen name.
I got to be honest with you. After I started posting them,
did you ever regret that?
I did for a while.
Yeah.
And I struggled back and forth. But you know what? I think the point is to own who you are, and the more you can own, the better you're going to feel.
Right.
And the less judgment you're going to worry about. So if I was hiding behind something else, which is what I felt like I've done my whole life, it would have defeated the purpose. It would have been a lot easier to publish and put stuff out there. And I could probably have put a lot of stuff that I would like to, but, protecting the names and faces, and, I have little kids. And,
sure, absolutely.
But I think ultimately this was probably the best growth experience, was to own it under my own name.
And probably so impactful that you cannot be in it. It's Joe Ryan. That's it. Oh yeah, I know Joe Ryan. Yeah. And how amazing is it? Instagram has how many users? Like 3 billion or whatever the hell they have now. That you got to be Joe Ryan on Instagram.
Well, it's like 10 years old.
Right. Imagine just one dude beat you to that, and you're like, God knows what your Instagram name is, and you don't get that experience of full disclosure to the world.
I never thought of it that way.
How crazy is that?
But I've had a guy that just this other Joe Ryan. He wants my Instagram name and he wants my website. And he's like, he came in with like this really low number, and I'm like, I don't think I would sell it for $100.
Sell my name,
right? I wouldn't
right?
sell it for $100,000. And he's like, well, your website isn't that good. I'm like, I know it's not. I said, but it's my name.
But it's my name, right? Exactly. I remember how many times you would complain that you couldn't get up. Like your SEO sucked for your own name.
It still does.
Because there's so many Joe Ryans as a common name.
Right.
That amazing that you got to be Joe Ryan on Instagram, and that turns into part of the process.
It is.
No hiding. Fuck you guys. Here I am.
No, it's weird. Even even pictures of myself for a long time, I couldn't put pictures up, and I still I just did not want to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's just a really poor way to live life. So all of this is coming out of hiding,
right?
Exposing myself to myself, kind of humiliating myself to myself.
Yep.
And in the process, so many people can relate that I don't feel like it was just me having these thoughts and living this life.
Yeah.
And now there's a community of friends that I've built, and we exchange messages, and there's just this nice little group. Cool, that I feel like it's building, and there's this energy that's coming from it. And the more people that I feel like are wrapping around with it, the less alone I feel. Because I guess it's a different kind of people than I usually had run with.
Yeah.
And I feel like...
That's totally different crowd. Totally.
Yeah, I don't feel like I'm trying to fit in anymore. I just feel like I'm belonging.
Right.
I'm part of something bigger than me.
Very cool. It's so funny. Years ago, your Twitter account, which you never use, I won't mention the name, but I always wondered why you picked the handle.
Out of
Self-deprecating in a certain extent.
Out of
Did it have to
business?
do with the business at the time? What was going on, or no?
Yeah, I had the business, and
Yeah,
it was,
I remember you saying like, "Well, it's just a thing that I used to just put stuff out there," and I've never gone back to look because we never really interacted.
well, I made
on Twitter.
another Twitter account to do that,
Oh, okay.
so nobody knew who I was.
I was just wondering how that tied into this.
Well, the name Out of Business game was the business.
That's what I often
and
wondered.
Twitter just had happened, and you remember Pete, who used to work with us?
Yeah.
He was all over Twitter, and I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know what name to use. He's like, well, what's going on in your life? And I'm like, Out of Business.
Out of business. There you go. I often wondered that. All right, so there you go. I kind of had a feeling it had something to do with what was happening at the moment, but so there you go. You could have wound up being out of business on Instagram. Who knew?
Right.
So it worked out really well. Anyway.